This is Fight Disciples.
We are gathered here today
For the Fight Disciples. UFC and boxing talk.
Welcome to episode 230 of the Fight Disciples podcast. This episode is called Diary of a Pro Gambler, and you're probably thinking, what the fuck has that got to do with Fight Disciples? All will be explained, don't you worry about that. Before we get into it though, as you well know, or you probably know, Adam Cattrall is away at the moment. He's over in Toronto, still sunning himself with family. Been to see Toronto FC. I've seen on his Twitter, on his handle. Honestly, some people are just gluttons for punishment. But he's away at the moment, so I've got a guest in today and a guest in on the boxing show as well. Apologies that we're a little bit late, bank holiday and all that. You know, got to have some time with the family, you know how it is. But what on today's show, literally going to go right over UFC link, and we're going to look up ahead to the big fights at UFC 228 and UFC 229. Little bit of homework. Thank you to everyone that has gone above and beyond and bought a Fight Disciples Gorilla King tee. It's been absolutely mental. I'm going to put a picture on social media today of a photograph I took over the weekend of me, the missus and kids, bagging T-shirts. Literally T-shirts getting bagged everywhere. It was kind of insane. Didn't expect to get that kind of reaction whatsoever. So again, thank you so much if you've bought a Gorilla King tee. And let me tell you, I'll also let you know where that money is going to be spent, because obviously, you know, it certainly ain't going to be paying off mine or Adam's mortgage. You'll get it back invested into the Fight Disciples brand, and it will facilitate one or both of us to be at a massive event very soon. I'll let you know more about that when it gets finally sorted out. That brings me on to today's guest, or today's co-presenter, should I say. And the name of the show, Diary of a Pro Gambler, should be a little bit of an indicator there. This guy who I'm going to introduce now, we got chatting on social media a couple of months ago, followed one another, followed the Fight Disciples. We started talking about betting in MMA. His Twitter handle is at MMA_betting. His website is MMABettingTips.com. I am, of course, talking about Chris Alsop. Chris, welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having me, mate. I really appreciate it.
Not at all, mate.
Yeah.
Not at all. Your life fascinates me, Chris. Fascinates me. So, obviously, similar position to myself, you know, a little bit younger than me, but young family, you know, kids, everything else. Yet you make a living. How much your income then, that's the first question I want to know, is from gambling?
All of it, pretty much. I've got a website where I make a small amount, but nothing really. That's why I first contacted you. Remember, I was concerned about the BT Sport deal.
11.
Yeah, really concerned, because right now, you know, I watch fights for a living. I talk about fights for a living. It's my dream job. I never would have thought I'd be in this position, and the thought of that being taken away from me is the scariest thing on the planet right now for me.
Of course.
And BT Sports losing the rights to just that feeling of uncertainty all of a sudden, because we don't know, you know, what the situation is going to be with 11 Sports. I know the bookies won't be keen to take big bets on a sport that's only provided through a streaming platform, potentially with a delay on the broadcast, which leaves them open to, you know, being stung essentially from people in the arena and stuff. So I was just really concerned. And to be honest with you, I thought the natural progression, the way the sport's going, for years I've been hoping Sky Sports would pick it up.
So at the moment, just to give everyone an update on 11, because I'm a little bit ahead of the curve on it, just because of my friends and contacts at IMG and people at the UFC. Where it's at right now, it goes live on 11 mid-January when the current BT Sport deal ends. There is very positive talks taking place that it will be a channel on Virgin. So if you've got a Virgin package, you will get 11 Sports as a channel. And conversations are ongoing with Sky for something similar. It will be a channel that you can access through packages. It's just where it sits in that list. You know, will it be a free channel or will you need the full sports package? That's the stuff that's being sorted at the moment. As you can imagine, the big conversation in there is Virgin are probably saying, yeah, we'll have it, but we want your 3 or 4 pay-per-views a year, which you've earmarked, to be on our BT Sport pay-per-view platform. And as you can imagine, I'm sure Sky Sports are in exactly the same position. Because, listen, Anthony Joshua might sell pay-per-views, but nobody sells pay-per-views, even in the UK, like Conor McGregor. So that's what the conversations, that's why the delay. But listen, I know 11 is available now as a streaming platform. with the golf and Italian and Spanish football, and it's ruffled a few feathers because people are like, what's going on? But as MMA fans, we've got till January, we've got till the end of the year, so them negotiations will hopefully have caught up with each other. But I'm confident, very confident about Virgin, quietly confident that it will be on Sky as well. So
That's
listen,
great news.
the conversations I had there with the UFC were, we're not going to go from a potential audience of 7 million, which is the amount of people that have got BT Sports in this country, to anything smaller. We want to go to a bigger platform, which would be your Virgin and your Sky combined, over 20 million potential customers. That's where they want to sit, obviously. Otherwise, they wouldn't have moved.
Yeah.
They'd have stayed exactly there. So it's kind of like, it will sort itself out. I wouldn't worry about it. But for someone like yourself, take us back then, Chris, to your journey into your dream job. What were you doing beforehand? When did you make the jump, and how did you fucking talk your wife into it?
So this is the thing. So, like how most people end up doing what they do, it was by complete accident. If you would have told me in the past this is how I would be in a living, I would have told you you're crazy.
Yeah.
Like, never would have thought it would happen. But started 10 years ago. Like, it's been a long time in the making, with just the birth of my son, basically. I was working part-time in Tesco, earning 800 quid a month. Just hated my job. You know, every morning when the alarm clock goes off,
I did it.
and you just have that feeling of pain.
I stacked shelves at Tesco's for 2 years when I was studying.
And it's mentally hard. Like, it drains on you. And I was just heading nowhere fast, basically. Didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew damn sure I didn't want to do that for too much longer, but didn't really know where to go. So my son was born. He's 9 now. And I just remember, like, even when my missus was pregnant, like, it didn't really hit me that I was, like, having a kid, if that makes sense. Like, I was too young and I wasn't ready for it. But then as soon as he was born and you hold him, it's kind of like, it gets real, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And then straight away,
It's real.
And it was like a switch went off in my head. There was like, right, I need to do something now, because getting paid £800 a month in Tesco, it's not going to cut it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I didn't have any direction. And the problem is, when you don't have any direction, you're under pressure to start earning more money. It's hard to make good decisions.
Yeah.
So at that point, I probably made the worst decision ever, and just start gambling.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that draws most people to gambling, isn't it? It's desperation.
That's why
That's
people
how
do
they
the
make the
lottery
money.
every week.
Exactly.
They actually think they're going to win the lottery.
And I actually thought I would make money gambling, and for the longest time I didn't. Like, it was brutal, and I probably should have quit.
So did you read a ton of books? Did you because there's loads of stuff out there. The reason I know, a good friend of mine, he wants to become a professional gambler, but his focus is horses. And he has read every book under the sun. He kind of does it now. And we started like a WhatsApp group where he was like, right, okay, I'm going to show you how to make money. And we all put like £50 in it. It lasted about 4 races and it was gone. And I just thought, wow, you couldn't have any more information at your fingertips, and you can't make it work. It sounds such a difficult place. So for 10 years, or for the 9 years, when did you get to a point where you thought, wow, okay, this has turned a profit now. I can pay a mortgage with this now. I can pay rent with this now.
Yeah, well, I'm quite a risk averse person. I don't, like, this is the first time I've ever done anything like this. I never, you'll probably notice, I never advertise my website, rarely post about it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Don't really put myself out there. So yeah, it's one of those things that took me a long time to make that jump, because when you've got kids, you know what it's like. It's easy to take risks when you're 20.
Of course.
But when you've got to put a roof over your head, it's not as easy. So I only made the actual full-time jump, went all in, about 2 years ago. But I started earning more from gambling than I did from my day job about 4 years ago. So I was juggling the two, but I was quite lucky. I was doing a job. I was a content creator for Tesco. I managed to work my way up through the ranks over the years.
Yeah.
Which, probably shouldn't have done it, but the job was quite flexible. I was pretty much my own boss, so it made it easier to juggle the two. It wasn't like I had to be in at 9 every day, finish at 5, constantly punch the clock. I could kind of juggle the two. So it did make it easier to transition, but it took 8 years.
Wow.
A long time of just grafting, grinding, loads of setbacks. Loads of setbacks now. That doesn't stop. The only thing is, where you have all that information you read in the books, you just have to get comfortable with losing, as crazy as that sounds, because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, you lose a lot.
Of course.
But the way you deal with those losses, whether you can continue to keep grinding out profits, or whether you just let those losses affect your judgment, you start making bad decisions.
Well, that's the thing. I think as someone who bets occasionally, I'm someone that'll bet and go, just lost 20 quid there.
Yeah.
And I can walk away because I'm only an occasional better.
Yeah.
But then if I go, like I've been to Aintree a few times, I've been to race days on people's stag do's and whatever else, and I'll have a bet and go, I've just lost 20 quid. I'll put 30 on the next race to get that 20 back. And
Yeah.
I think as a gambler, that's probably the worst thing you can possibly do.
Yeah,
is to
well,
chase your money.
that's the thing. Well, the thing is, like, I didn't start out betting large sums of money. I literally started out. What happened was, the reason why I got into it, years ago when I was like 15, 16, I watched The Ultimate Fighter when it was on Bravo. Used to come home from work, check it on. But back then it wasn't easy to watch the UFC. In fact, it was practically impossible unless you bought some videos from HMV or something.
Yeah, exactly.
You couldn't do it.
Of course.
And then years later, when I had my son, obviously you're up all night with a baby, and I'd just be sat on the sofa. UFC would be on. I think it was on Setanta back then, probably. And I would just go through the fight card. Scan Wikipedia, looking at the win-loss records, and just to make it more interesting, I'd bet a $5 on every single fight, fighter A win or fighter B win.
Okay.
And I started off doing that.
So just single bets, not
Just
an accumulator?
No, always just singles, like just fighter A or fighter B.
Yeah.
And then after a while, I was always used to either win a little bit, lose a little bit, but for the most part, float around break even, just going nowhere, basically.
Of course.
So then I just thought, what would happen if I only bet £5 on the fights that I actually felt pretty confident in?
Yeah.
And then again, you still float around break even, but you start to creep up and you start to win.
Of course.
Very small amounts.
Because of your knowledge as a fan. You think, okay, his style suits his style.
Yeah.
Yeah, fancy that bet.
Just grinding. And then over time, it just built up and up and up. I learned about compound interest. And even though I bet large amounts now, which would be terrifying to a lot of people, because it was so, it's been so slow getting there.
Yeah.
Even though the amounts of money is still a lot of money to me, I'm just literally a regular guy. It's almost like it's not money. Do you know what I mean? It's just like a game that I've been playing for a long time.
Yeah.
As weird as that sounds. And I think it helps being online as well. You're not actually drawing out cash, going into a bookie, handing over cold hard cash. So I think that makes it a little
bit more
easier.
like Bitcoin type thing, where it doesn't actually really exist. So how does it work? Do you have like a float in do you have numerous accounts? Do you have one account where you bet, or do you have like little floats everywhere, and then each month you kind of withdraw a little bit out of each one to your wife? Okay, there's my money for the month, sorted. Yeah. Is that how it kind of works?
No, I wish it did work like that. That would be nice, but unfortunately, not a lot of people know, but bookies shut you down very quickly when you start doing not even that much money, to be honest with you. They make it very difficult for you to make money.
Yeah.
Once
they see you're just ticking along, making money, taking a little bit off the top every month.
They'll shut you down, 100%. Yeah. So for the longest time, I've just relied on like family and friends to place bets for me.
Wow.
But I don't withdraw. So as soon as you make a withdrawal, say you have like a couple grand in a betting account, and you withdrew 500 quid straight away, because such a small percentage of people that bet on these sites make a withdrawal.
Yeah.
They'll flag your account for review, and chances are, if you've been betting smart, just stick into single bets, not accumulators, not these stupid bets like.
See, that's my problem.
Darren Tilda winning round 3 by knockout. Like, those are the kind of bets they want you to place.
Yeah. Darren Till in round 2. I've just done it the other week.
That's what. But if you drive past the bookies, you'll see in the window, like you'll literally see, like, you know what I mean. You'll see like Paul Pogba to score first and Man United to win 3-1 at 10-1 or something, and that's what they want.
1,000 to 1.
Exactly.
But of course.
Yeah.
So they want you to come in and do these multiple bets.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Exactly. So if you just stick to the basics, you can have a lot of success. If you know a decent amount of MMA, a decent amount about MMA, you can have a lot of success. So yeah, they'll shut you down quickly. So what I tend to do is the good thing about the betting sites in the UK is when they close you down, they will give you your money.
Right.
Like in 10 years, I've never had a problem getting money out of a betting site ever.
Okay.
So
AN Betting Company will just message you saying, sorry, we're closing down your account. Here's your opportunity to withdraw all your money out.
Yeah, and if you go on my Twitter and have a look back through, like if you click like the link for media and have a look back through, when I get emails, sometimes I'll like post the actual email on my profile for people to see, because most people don't know they do it. They just think like pro gambler, some guy that walks into a casino with a bag of money. And it's just, I wish I was driving a Ferrari. It's not like that. No. So what I tend to do, I gamble hard on an account. And then as soon as it gets limited, I just take all the money out, and then I'll keep the profit and put the original deposit into another account and just keep it rolling. But I never make regular withdrawals. So haven't had the withdrawal from MMA betting.
Yeah.
I made a little bit of cash on the World Cup, probably complete luck.
Yeah.
So that's kept me ticking over the last couple of months. But I haven't had a withdrawal from MMA since like April.
Wow.
Yeah. But luckily, towards the end of last year, I went on. It was just a ridiculous run, a massive, massive run. But it's up and down, and that's what kills a lot of people off as well. And I see it with the members on my website. Like, no matter how much you say to people, like, this is completely normal. Like, losing is just a part of what we do.
Yeah.
You know, the important thing is when you are losing and you're not doing great, it's just to keep as close to break even as you can. Not let it affect you. Keep making good decisions.
Yeah.
Because the thing that people don't realize about MMA is, like, to get to the highest level of anything, you've got to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
And MMA fighters, to get to where they've got in the UFC or Bellator or whatever, they've got to be good at learning from their mistakes.
Of course.
So when we're researching,
count on one hand the number who are undefeated.
Exactly.
Across the entire sport.
So when you're researching a fight, you're doing it from old data, old information, old footage when you're studying fight footage. So you can't, these people that just give out predictions and super confident predictions and you know, they'll nail their flag to the floor and say this is how a fight is going to go down.
Yeah.
I think that's what people don't realize when it comes to betting, and you have to be prepared to lose, because fighters are always improving. They're always trying to correct their mistakes. Like, you look at Tim Williams against Eric Anders, like, the past weekend. Like, I spent a ton of time researching that Lincoln card, and if you go back and watch Williams' past fights, completely different guy to what you saw in the first round against Anders, and you saw it threw Anders off completely.
Absolutely.
And he was a massive favourite. Anders completely just, I'm not going to say he froze, but usually comes out the gate 100 mile an hour, doesn't he? Very aggressively.
But he lost that first round.
Yeah, because he's probably thinking, what the fuck is this? Like, this is not what I expected.
Yeah.
And that's the type of thing you can't predict.
But isn't that MMA all over, though? There's so many ways to win and lose.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
And that's why people get crushed.
Because listen, I've been behind the curtain in horse racing. You know, a couple of years ago, 10 years ago, actually, I rode a racehorse at a professional racetrack.
Oh, wow.
On a race day, believe it or not, even though I'm 6'2". And it was a charity race. It was because I was doing this charity thing over a year where it was in different sports. But I got to see behind the curtain, and I got to see the conversations that go on between jockeys and managers and trainers. And I come away from that thinking, I ain't fucking ever betting on the horses again.
Yeah.
Because horse racing, there's if you're standing outside putting a bet on, not even knowing what the horses will look like in the parade ring, you literally just, mate, it's fucking free money to the bookies, because it doesn't work like that. But mixed martial arts, and in a lot of ways boxing as well, I know boxing's not really as competitive in terms of a card as a UFC event. But a UFC event, like that Lincoln event at the weekend, I seen on your Twitter account, because I had a little look last week, I thought, right, I'll see what Chris is doing and keep an eye on it. And I'd seen you basically put out on Twitter, this card's tight as fuck. So be careful if you're gambling here. And there's a few guys come back and they were going, well, I've done a Moraga Alcantara double. That's fucking this, and this. And I seen that and thought, you're probably right. Yeah, I'd go with that double. That's a decent double. Both those guys got beat. It's crazy.
It's really tough.
The only fight on this card, which was free money and was always free money and will ever be free money, was Jake Ellenberger getting knocked out. Yeah. That was the only one.
But you know what? When the odds first come out for a card, I like scan through the card, and certain names will always jump out at me. And Ellenberger was such a huge underdog.
Yeah,
that name did jump out at me, because when the odds are that attractive in MMA, at the end of the day, there's only, if you take all the analysis out of it, there's only two outcomes.
Yeah. And
with Ellenberger being such a huge underdog, he's got power in his hands.
I know
Barberina's got a beard on him in more ways than one. But Ellenberger's still massive power, and you look at it and you think, that might be worth a gamble. But then when I went back and watched the footage, I could see
he's shot.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, Ellenberger's shot to bits. Because I thought, looking at the card when it got made, I thought, fuck, you've done him no favours giving him Barberina, who's a bit of a monster. But then I thought, this is in Nebraska, and that's where Ellenberger's from. Win, lose or draw, I can see Ellenberger hanging him up here. Maybe in the first round, and he come out quite aggressively as well. But then a minute in, you just think, you're being aggressive against Barberena, who can
Yeah.
bang. And as soon as he catches, you'll go.
Yeah.
And fuck me, he went, didn't he? He just
Yeah.
caught him and he was finished. So
Yeah.
is there, so when you see guys like that, as you say, Ellenberger straight away, that's a red flag. This guy's got no chin. But then the gambler in you makes you go, well, actually, what are his odds like?
Yeah.
Because this is MMA.
Exactly.
And fucking anything can happen.
Exactly. And I just look for, because I study so much footage, like I said, I'd just be sat at home in my pants now, usually watching UFC Fight Pass all day.
So this is
That's it.
basically, so this is your life then? You said you're living the dream.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, you never came to the studio today in a Ferrari. I
Mhm.
know, because you never parked it next to mine. But so this is that you said to your missus, right, I want to do this full time.
Mhm.
So does she work? Does she go out all day and work? Does she?
Yeah.
So she comes home from work
hmm
and you're still in your undies, still watching Fight Pass.
Yeah.
And she can't say fuck all.
Nothing,
And she
mate.
can be
Not
like,
even
"Well,
when we're on
you haven't
holiday.
you haven't even hoovered the living room.
I
You're
get
like,
that.
I'm grafting.
Have you spoken to her? Because that's exactly what she would say. You
The
know?
tea's not even ready.
Yeah.
Come on.
This is exactly what she would say.
You're like, I've been fucking grafting
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Been watching Fight Pass
fights
for 8
all
hours.
day.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes.
Wow.
It's crazy. But she's super supportive
Yeah.
because she's seen like blood, sweat and tears, like how hard it is, like my lowest lows.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I've almost jacked it in a couple times
Of
over the
course,
10
can
years.
imagine.
But yeah, at the same time though, like honestly, when I first started, I'm not exaggerating, like phone bill getting cut off every month. You'd have gas and electric on the meter in a house we were renting, and it would be just trying to make that electric last a couple more days till payday.
Of course.
Do you know what I mean? So since then now, like drive a decent car, bought our own house, and that wouldn't have been possible without gambling.
Of course.
So she's just all in as well. She's super on board.
Amazing. Were you able to get were you still working at Tesco's when you got your mortgage?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I
So
was gonna
that's why
say,
it took
'cause-
me so long to just go full time into MMA, because if I tried to get a mortgage, earn a living from gambling, I would just got laughed out the
Exactly.
bank. So I
Well,
had to keep
Listen,
it.
most fighters who we have in the studio, they get laughed out
Yeah.
because
I
there's no
can believe
guaranteed
it.
income there.
Yeah. So I had to get the house sorted. That's something I've always wanted to do. Never
Yeah.
thought it would be possible, especially with the way house prices are going.
Of course.
And then literally as soon as we got the house, that was it then. All in on MMA.
Wow. So you do bet on other sports?
I
Or is
don't.
it just like the World Cup's coming, I'll have a bit of fun?
All it is, I've never bet on other sports before. Like if we went to a casino now, I wouldn't be gambling. I would be the guy saying, guys, listen, like you're fighting a losing battle, don't bother.
Yeah.
Because I know what it takes to actually make a profit. So if I'm not feeling super confident in something, I know I'm going to lose, because I know what it takes to have to know enough about MMA to make a profit on it.
Yeah.
But like recently, I've started to dip my toe into football betting, only because I'm a season ticket holder at Cardiff City.
Right.
They're in the Premier League, and the Premier League has got the highest liquidity in terms of betting on pretty much any sport that I've seen, because online gambling's illegal in America. So like NFL and that doesn't carry the same liquidity.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me because the way MMA is over here with the broadcast times and stuff, the liquidity is low, which means it's hard to get big bets on. There's not as much money in the pot.
Gotcha.
So bookies aren't willing to take as big a bet.
Right.
But with football betting, if I could crack another sport with higher liquidity, that's when you do get the Lambo money, you do get the Ferrari money. Because the way MMA is going, I will never achieve that because liquidity is too low. Like you
Wow.
can make a decent income,
Yeah.
but you're not going to be like...
You'll never make millions just purely because
Yeah.
they won't take bets of that size.
Yeah, and you can see the liquidity for yourself. Like if you go onto an exchange like Betfair Exchange or Matchbook and you go, left-hand side, click into MMA, the latest UFC event, it'll show you how much liquidity just on that website is on that fight. And honestly, sometimes, I know it's an exchange, but some fights on the prelims, they might have only taken like 70 quid in bets,
Wow.
which means that'll be the max bet limit.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you were to go on to, say, a Premier League game, you're talking millions. So I don't know if I can do it, but all I know is I've never had a fight in my life. I didn't know anything about MMA before I started this. I'm just a fan.
Yeah.
And I've done this. So I think, I've watched football all my life, played football all my life. Maybe
You can make the
we'll
transition
see
over
what
to there.
happens. Maybe we'll see.
Wow.
But I'm not too sure.
In terms of MMA, then obviously you got into it watching Tough in the early days. You say you've never trained MMA, but at what stage did this passion for MMA kind of burn bright? I'm sure you weren't watching it initially going, I can make money betting on this.
No.
You're watching it. What inspired you to enjoy it so much?
I think like it was just when I first started watching, like certain fighters were coming up, like Anderson Silva, and I used to look forward to his fights like months in advance. It was like the night before Anderson Silva would fight. It was like Christmas.
Yeah.
And at first it was just watching MMA for something to do while my son was up at night. But then over time I just grew to love it. And I don't know what it was. I just love it. And I still to this day, like every weekend I look forward to it. Like we haven't had much UFC lately, but I'm itching now for UFC 228. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be insane.
Can't wait.
What's can you remember what's your biggest return on a fight?
Well, because I don't do accumulators or big bets like that, it's not loads.
Yeah.
I think it's probably about $6 or $7 something like that. I think it was probably the biggest win I've ever had was Rose Namajunas to beat Paige Van Zandt.
Oh, right.
Because she was a decent-sized underdog.
Of course.
And when I researched that fight, it was so strange. Like, I watched their past fights, just like I always do. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those rare moments, like you get them once or twice a year where you research a fight and you're like, what the fuck are the bookies seeing here? Yeah. Because it just seems too good to be true. When something seems too good to be true.
Had been on Dancing with the Stars. She was a superstar. The UFC were fast tracking her.
And I looked at their past fights and I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Yeah. Because Namajunas was like a 2-1 underdog.
Wow. Which
is in hindsight.
It's insane.
Crazy.
Of course.
But the signs were there. Like because that's another thing that people don't always realise. When the bookies set the odds on a card, it is literally just someone's opinion, a trader's opinion, where they set those opening odds on how they see those fights going. And we're all wrong all the time.
Of course.
So there's always going to be money to be made. It takes a lot of work because obviously you're doing battle with multinational companies that have got a lot of experience and they're trying to set accurate odds and they're trying to make people lose money at the end of the day.
Do you think that's why sometimes you get little gems though? Because potentially the guys making odds for, AN domestic UK operator aren't as screwed on about MMA as maybe the Las Vegas counterparts would be.
Definitely. And we're seeing it recently. So the odds on like some of the PFL cards recently, the odds on the Dana White's Contender Series, just absolutely insane. Where you can tell. So you can't tell initially because obviously you're just looking at the odds, you're looking at Wikipedia. But when you look at the odds, you've got massive underdogs in some of these fights. When you watch footage, you don't need to know anything about fighting really. Yeah. Very quickly you'll see that this has just been plucked out of thin air. And it's probably that with all the events now, Bellator, PFL, they're even doing odds on KSW, Cage Warriors. Yeah. It's probably just a time issue because it takes me 30-40 hours a week sat in my pants watching fight footage, and I'm sure there's no one at Bet365 HQ doing that. So it's kind of, in a way, I do feel confident that you can make money on this sport because it's just about outworking people, just like anything really, isn't it? The hardest workers,
of course, reap the rewards.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you find stuff like KSW or Cage Warriors or Dana White's Contender Series, that's where you generally find the little gems?
Well, the problem is I don't personally bet on those events because liquidity is just tiny. It's really difficult, but I do research them and give bets out for people on my website because they still bet on them. Yeah. And it's good as well for me to obviously keep up to date with like fighters coming into the top promotions,
of course,
and see what's going on there. So I've got a good knowledge of them then when they come into the bigger promotions.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of Rose beating Paige, obviously that was a good payday for you. Do you have certain fighters like they just stick with Rose right through the Namajunas fights and think, she paid off for me before, she'll pay for me again? Or can you not do that?
I know I don't do that, but
You never back Rose to beat.
No, I'm a fool. I am a fool. I know.
On Fight Disciples, Rose will beat her.
I said to everyone, like everyone was betting Jędrzejczyk, and I was like, guys, be careful, because Rose, those first 2 rounds, I mean that ended up not being true. You know what we said earlier on about fighters are constantly improving. Yeah. The adversity that Rose battled through in that rematch, go 25 minutes, like she's never shown cardio like that before. No. In the past, she would have broken after eating some of those shots and taking some of that pressure off Jędrzejczyk, but she fought through it, and that is literally textbook example of why MMA is so difficult to bet on, because fighters are constantly improving. But I said those first 2 rounds, she's a nightmare, and I didn't bet her again in the rematch because even though she starched Joanna early.
Yeah.
I thought, if Joanna can survive first couple of rounds, weather the storm, drag her into deep waters, we're going to see a fade like she did against Kowalkiewicz.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was wrong on both accounts, but I'm chuffed as well because Rose, she's just class.
Yeah, she's
like to
brilliant.
have a champion like that,
Yeah,
she's
exactly.
amazing. And you can see as well when you see a fighter like improve that much.
I was going to say, you must have watched I would compare with the amount of footage you watch. I would compare you to someone like Dan Hardy, because Dan literally will spend 8 hours a day watching footage as well for a completely different reason, obviously just for his knowledge and his analytics. But you must watch fights like that and think, wow. More than anyone, you can sit back and think, fuck me, Rose Namajunas has improved.
Yeah,
and improved
definitely.
insane from where she was when she started in the UFC.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Like Dan Hardy's obviously another level. I watch his Beyond the... Is it Road to the Octagon? Beyond the Octagon?
Yeah.
And they're just amazing.
Inside the Octagon?
Inside the Octagon.
With John, yeah.
Because what he does and what I can't do because I don't have that level of knowledge, he just picks out details that to the naked eye I would never see.
Yeah.
And that's why I love what he does. He's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And if someone like that started betting on MMA, he would be a dangerous beast.
Yeah.
Because what he's seeing, if I'm not seeing it, all the hours I spend watching footage, there's no way the traders, the bookies are seeing it. Just no way.
Of course. Which is the in your opinion, over the last 10 years, then, which fighter of that ilk would you say is the most improved? The person that you first started watching and maybe started thinking, well, he's fighting, I'll bet against that guy or that girl. And now, they've come to contendership or whatever. Most improved,
that's a tough one. I think Tony Ferguson is probably in there.
Yeah.
If you look at what he's done. I know he hasn't lost much. His record's amazing. But the fighter he's become, just relentless cardio, relentless pressure.
Yeah.
He's pretty amazing. Also, just from recently, because it's obviously easier for me to remember recent fighters, like the Kevin Lee that fought Edson Barboza is a completely different fighter.
Absolutely.
Completely different. Again, so I bet on Barboza in that fight because his takedown defense is incredible.
Yeah.
You have to write the Khabib fight off because Khabib's just another level. So you look at before the Khabib fight, his takedown defense impenetrable. Mm-hmm. And you think after the first 2 rounds, Lee starts to slow down significantly. So in a 25-minute fight, this is a great matchup for Barboza. Yeah. And Lee, literally in the 5th round, was the fresher fighter.
It's mad, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. Again, Amanda Nunes, probably a big one as well, because again, cardio issues. You look at her fight against Shevchenko, after her first fight against Shevchenko, after 6 or 7 minutes, she was gassed out of her mind. Absolutely. She did the same against Kat Zingano. And now, her last 2 fights, Shevchenko went 25 minutes, Pennington 25 minutes. And again, Nunes looked fresh in that 5th round against Pennington. And the fight was contested at quite a high pace. Mm-hmm. I thought literally from the first minute, Nunes, her output was really high. And watching it, I thought she's going to fade here. She's not going to be able to keep this up. Yeah. But she did.
Absolutely, she did.
So I know that's not the best answer because we're looking over the entire time, but it's easier to remember
the newer ones.
Recent ones.
No, of course. With the bigger names, then the champions, like we've got 2 big title fights coming up, obviously, with Khabib and Conor and Tyron Woodley and Darren Till. Do you ever get to bet on them, or are the odds too well done by the bookies for the big fights? Or
yeah, I do. Yeah, to be honest with you, I do, because another reason why I think MMA can be beaten, by that I just mean you can profit on it compared to some other sports which are trickier, is because in a lot of ways MMA does share a little bit of WWE, where fighters' personalities weigh into public perception.
Hence the Paige Van Zandt opportunity.
Exactly, and where you have, odds are also moved by the amount of money wagered either side on each fighter. So for that reason, it's just, I think that the way that the personality plays into the odds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk about Lincoln at the weekend. I know you didn't flash any cash at this event, which surprised me because, as I say, I think Jake Ellenberger, fuck me, every time he fights, that's free money.
He was a giant favourite, though. So if you would have bet 100 quid on Barberena, you would have got like
50 pence.
Yeah,
just a complete waste of time. But let's talk about the main fight, Justin Gaethje, James Vick. Now, I'll be honest, going into this fight last week, I said it on multiple, I said on Fight Disciple, I said it on the other podcast that I do, that I was like, this is James Vick's moment, man. He's going to emerge. We've been waiting for this opportunity. The guy's a genuine lightweight contender, and I was adamant, and I didn't have a bet on it, but I wanted to have a bet on James Vick, winning inside the distance, making a statement against Gaethje, the opportunity he's been waiting for. And fuck me, I think he's still licking a canvas somewhere in Lincoln, Nebraska, isn't
Brutal.
he? Absolutely starched him.
Brutal.
You didn't see that coming, did you?
Well, I said earlier, like, I scanned through the fights. Gaethje was one of the names that first jumped out at me just because he was the underdog. And I thought that Vick has been caught cold quite a few times before, like Dariush caught him, trapped him against the cage. And that's kind of what Gaethje does, works his way inside and then just uncorks bombs. And I thought, with the way the Vick stands so tall, he could catch him. But then when I actually watched footage, I thought, no way. Because the way Gaethje does try and get inside, he literally just plods forward with his hands up, just eating bombs. Poirier was just teeing off on him, but Poirier started to slow down at some points in that fight. It was only the foul that kind of gave him the second win to get the knockout. Yeah. But with Vick, his cardio is so good, and he's so good at staying on the outside and picking people off as they come in. I thought Gaethje's just going to march forward, and Vick's just going to pick him off. Circle out of danger, keep his back off the cage. Because Gaethje's not particularly good at cutting the octagon off. He just relentless pressure.
Zombie.
Yeah.
Just walks you down like a zombie, like The Walking Dead.
But I think Gaethje just didn't give Vick time to settle. He caught him cold. Yeah. And I think that's where it was. Vick didn't have time to settle.
I was so disappointed because, I genuinely believe James Vick has been one of the most undervalued lightweights in the UFC. And think as the run he's put together, it's starting to feel a little bit like Bisping. He's getting to that fucking final hurdle where you think he might get a shot here. Yeah. And yet he falls dramatically as well. Yeah. I was like, I thought he was backing off well. He's throwing nice leg kicks. He was firing out a nice straight 1-2. James Vick's background, he's Golden Gloves national champion boxer. So I thought Gaethje was kind of made for him. Mm-hmm. But then, as you say, he's got that suspect chin, unfortunately. And fuck me. Yeah. That was he was put to sleep. That was one of the soundest knockouts we've seen for a while. Michael Johnson moved down to featherweight, finally got a win at featherweight as well against Touchy Feely. It was quite close. I thought Johnson had got it, 2-1, but one of the judges had it 3 rounds to Feely, 0 to Johnson. Weird. Did you score the fight? Did you?
I scored it for Feely, but
2-1.
But he definitely made the fight closer than it needed to be. I was surprised because against Labov and Bermudez, he did a really good job of finishing every round strong and putting his stamp on the rounds. And in the third round of those fights, he saved enough gas in the tank to get fights to the ground. Yeah. Well, he's got a really strong top game. He's a strong wrestler. He didn't used to show that a few years back, but he's getting stronger. And I thought, we've seen MJ slow down in the past. Philly had a lot of control in the second round, took his back for a good 2 minutes, didn't he? Yeah. And then with MJ finishing the second round so strong, I thought he might have dumped off quite a bit of energy with that ground and pounds. He was landing bombs from top position.
He was, yeah.
And I expected because of that Philly to finish the third round strong, but he didn't. I'm guessing maybe Philly
he took his back and he shook him off. And then he stood back up straight again. So I thought, well, that was Philly's big moment. He should have just kept his back.
It was frustrating to watch, wasn't it? Because the hooks the Philly had in were so loose. Yeah. And you could just see MJ could have exploded into top position at any point. And he timed it well because MJ didn't give him enough time to improve his position. Then MJ finished the round strong, which is probably what decided the fight in the end.
Of course. Michael Johnson, is he somebody you've had a bet on in the past? Or
yeah,
he's been on a poor run, but he's bounced back here at the featherweight.
I actually bet on him to beat Gaethje, which he obviously lost. Yeah. Because I watched Gaethje's fights back in the World Series of Fighting, and he was struggling against guys like Luis Firmino.
Yeah, well, he had absolute wars, Firmino, didn't he?
And I honestly thought with MJ's power, you look what he did to Poirier. Of course. I thought Gaethje's just going to come out and get starched. And he almost did, to be fair. Yeah, he was on wobbly legs a few times, but weathered the storm.
Barberena, Ellenberger, obviously we talked about that. Barberena, is he another guy at welterweight that doesn't really get the respect he deserves? MMA lab, absolutely sound on the ground, but heavy fucking hands.
Yeah, he's just one of those guys. He's great at nothing, but he's reasonably good at everything, and his toughness just makes him a nightmare for almost anyone, unless you've got the cardio to match him, because he's not going away. I think his style must be demoralising, because no matter what you hit him with, he's just going to keep coming forward. Yeah. So tough to deal with.
Was there anything else on that card where you come away thinking, for fuck's sake, You know, where you were close, you know, Calderwood or Mickey Gall. I was speaking to Dan last week and he was like, this George Sullivan's a fucking gimme for Mickey Gall. And, you know, or is it occasions where the odds just aren't tempting enough?
Yeah, just to be honest with you, when I look for bets, it's kind of like, you know, if you go into like a shop and there's a sale on and you'll like the look of something, you'll pick it up and then you'll see the price. You'll be like, oh, fuck that.
Yeah.
I'm not having that. It's too expensive. And you'll pick something else up and it'll be a good price. And you'll think, yeah, that's a good deal.
Yeah.
I'll have a bit of that. That's pretty much what betting's like. And I just scanned through I spent ages researching the card.
Yeah.
Gave you like 2 weeks because of the break. I just found nothing. And that's a big part of making money from gambling as well, is knowing when to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of people are itching to place those bets. It's been 2 weeks since the last event. Yeah. And they just want to get a bet on to make the fight more exciting. You've just got to know when to chill.
Of course.
And it's events like that. You know, you look at the Philly MJ fight, the Angela Hill Courtney Casey fight, razor close, went to a split decision.
Yeah.
You know, the Vic Gaethje fight probably is a coin flip because of Vic's you know, potential to get caught cold, and Gaethje's just so reckless. And the odds were roughly close to even, so you just have to know when to pass.
Wow.
And the whole card was like that pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, yeah. I think that's from the outside looking in, that's like the difficult part of it.
Yeah.
It's like, we've been waiting for weeks for a UFC event.
Yeah.
One comes along and you go, yeah, I'm not betting here.
And it's even harder, like, with my website, because I've made mistakes over the years where
trying to force
people
it.
Are expecting bets.
Of course.
Because it's entertainment at the end of the day. They want bets. They want to have a good time on the weekend. They're paying good money for it.
Yeah.
But over the years, I've literally just had to learn to just block it out and just do my own thing. Because if I do my own thing, everyone else will benefit. Yeah, but it's taken a while to learn that.
Of course. Let's look ahead to 228 then. Woodley versus Till, obviously. You know my bet.
100%. I might join you. I might join you.
Second round. I actually spoke to Tyron Woodley yesterday for about 25 minutes in this very studio. That'll be dropping a Fight Disciples next week. I want to do something with Darren Till as well. Get them both in a big build-up head-to-head. Is there anything on this 228 card? Obviously Woodley Till. Is there anything on the undercard where you're looking forward to it? You're rubbing your hands together?
I mean, no one's really talking about the other title fight, Shevchenko against Montano.
Yep. Free money. Miguel,
well,
Shevchenko.
This is the thing. This is another one of those fights like Ellenberger, Barberena, where you do expect Shevchenko to win, but Montano is a huge underdog, and she's scrappy.
Of course.
Really scrappy. And to be honest with you, Shevchenko's obviously a beast.
Yeah.
But there have been in the past chinks in her armour. Like, she is a little passive at times.
Yep.
Doesn't have the best fight IQ. I mean, she was probably a minute and 30 seconds away from winning the title against Nunes when she went for that head and arm throw and ended up on the bottom.
Yep.
Little things like that. And I mean, Montano probably is a good stylistic matchup for her because Montano does come forward. She does push the pace, and that's what Shevchenko wants.
Mm-hmm.
So she can pick you off.
Yeah.
But I just think, I think Montano at the moment is like a 7 or 8 to 1 underdog.
Wow.
So,
as a champion, it's insane.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
And I know Shevchenko should get it done, but those are the kind of fights where, anything can happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think people just aren't giving Montano any respect.
No.
She can only beat what's put in front of her at the end of the day. And she did look good on TUF. She beat Barb Honchak on TUF.
She did, yeah.
Who was the flyweight champion for forever.
Yeah.
So
is that the stuff, obviously, heading into this card? Will you have a go at Montano? Will you think? Yeah.
Probably not, if I'm honest. It's probably a pass.
Just because your brain is telling you Shevchenko's going to win.
Yeah, what I would say about fights like that, people are more likely. So say they fancy a bet on Woodley or Till.
Yeah.
They'll throw Shevchenko into an accumulator just to sweeten the odds a little bit. And that's where you get killed.
Of course.
Those are the kind of bets where you get killed. You should just avoid or roll the dice.
Yeah.
So
is that like your golden rule, accumulators?
I don't play very rarely. Maybe like less than like 2 or 3 a year, maybe.
Wow.
Maybe in extreme circumstances. I think the last one I had was Paul Craig was fighting a Russian. I can't remember the Russian's name. He got a big win. He submitted him with a triangle in like the last second.
Yeah, that was.
Can't remember who the Russian
in London,
guy was.
Wasn't it? That was in.
It was in the UK.
Yeah. I remember it. Yeah, the Russian guy beat the shit out of him.
Yeah.
For literally 14 minutes 59 seconds.
Yeah.
And he got a triangle in the dying second. I remember it because I remember going.
So there you go, kids. That's why you don't place accumulators because that one got crushed. So I parlayed him with Khabib to beat Iaquinta, which was taking place around about the same time.
Yeah.
And obviously it got crushed.
So when you're watching that fight and you're thinking,
I was on
14
calculator
minutes,
out.
50 seconds
Calculator
in. Here
out.
we go.
That was a mistake I made. Calculator out. I was like, calculator out, working out my winnings. I couldn't believe it. And the Russian tapped immediately. It was like the fastest tap to a triangle I'd ever seen. Couldn't believe it.
It's like he didn't hear the klaxon. It was like no one in his corner. As soon as he threw the triangle up, no one in his corner just went 5 seconds. Don't worry. Literally as soon as it was on, he tapped.
It was immediate. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, absolutely mental. I've never seen anything like it because I was in the media room at UFC London, and I wasn't outside. We were inside. We were doing some recording, and I just remember jumping around the place, freaking out because I was just like, I've never seen anything like that before.
Do you know what though? At the same time, like because I lose so much, like you do become numb to it. Like it just doesn't bother you anymore. Yeah. And I felt like Paul Craig's had some tough matchups. Yeah. And he showed so many improvements in that fight. And the Russian was a beast. Yeah. Like I watched some of his past fights in M1, and he looked incredible. That's obviously why I don't usually bet on guys making their UFC debut. That's a golden rule that I broke, and I got punished for it. Yeah. But Paul Craig, that was his best performance, even though he got dominated in inverted commas. I thought he looked great. So to see him get a win, I was chuffed because I think he would have lost 3 in a row.
He'd have probably been out, to be honest.
So that's amazing for him to get that win.
Yeah.
Chuffed for that.
In terms of British fighters then, obviously you say you don't bet on guys making their UFC debut. Danny Roberts obviously fought someone a few weeks back. He was coming over from KSW. Mark Jacasey is someone we've been getting super excited about, but has lost 3 on the skid now. Yeah. Did you get burnt by the Mark Jacasey thing, or will it because he's always been a favourite? Have you stayed away from him?
To be honest, I have bet against Jacasey a few times, like Drakkar. So this is another example of where the bookies screwed up, in my opinion. Yeah. So Drakkar Closer was a huge underdog against Jacasey. I think about a 2-1 underdog. So I did bet Closer in that fight, but it's just because that's another example of a situation where Hapkarast is amazing. Mm-hmm. And for me, even though Jacasey lost that fight, that was his best performance. He showed amazing improvements.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
And for me, where he's showing that type of improvement, you've got to keep him around. He's young and exciting. And the reason why I bet against him when he fought Drakkar Closer was just because I didn't feel like as such a young fighter he'd learned to pace himself. Yeah. He used to come out so aggressive. Yeah. Have a huge adrenaline dump and then fade.
Try crazy shit.
Yeah. And Drakkar Closer, he's your Brian Bahrain, a typical MMA lab type guy. Yeah. He'll just keep coming forward, grind on you, break you down. And I felt that's why Closer was a bad matchup for Jacasey. But again, in that Hapkarast fight, it's like Hapkarast is a monster.
Brilliant.
So good. Yeah. And I thought Jacasey looked excellent. Like I actually tweeted Jacasey afterwards. Obviously, he didn't reply to me or anything, but he posted something like super disappointed I let everyone down, that kind of thing. Yeah. And I just said, mate, like that, you were a beast. Like that was the best performance you've had since you've been in the UFC, and you're on the right track, man. You just have to keep grinding. Like Hapkarast will do that to a lot of guys in the division, you know.
Another British guy who fights on this Till Woodley undercard is Craig White. Obviously, we've seen him debut in Liverpool, coming up late notice. Took on a guy ranked number 7 in the world. Mm-hmm. He was always on a hiding to nothing in Liverpool. Yeah, but he's been handed, in MMA terms, a little bit of a golden ticket in Diego Sanchez, someone who generates ticket sales. Fans love him. He's always in, Fight of the Year contenders. But another guy like Ellenberger, certainly on the slide. Do you fancy that fight at all? Have you looked at the betting for it? Because it would suggest, because of Sanchez's background, that he would start as favourite. But has Craig White got the ability, do you think, to get that one done?
I think he does, definitely. With Craig White, he's quite a big favourite in that fight.
Oh, so, is he? Yeah, he's a big favourite over Sanchez.
Which I was surprised at, mate.
Too, yeah.
I was surprised at, because I fancied him straight away. That was a name that jumped out at me, Craig White. Yeah. But I'll have to research it. I'm not too sure. I don't really want to speak too much on whether I think he's a good bet or not, because he is a big favourite. The payoff's not great. Yeah. But it's great to see guys like Craig White get rewarded with a fight like that, because he's one of those guys that just goes out on his shield. The wars he's been in Cage Warriors. Yep. And I love to see guys like that get rewarded, because Dana White always talks about he wants exciting fights. He wants you to leave it all out there. But quite often guys that come in with that style end up cut, end up losing money, end up taking a lot of damage and injuries because of it. So to see Craig White get rewarded, big name, winnable fight, I think that's brilliant. And hopefully he gets it done. I think he might be a bit like Jacasey, where it might take him a couple of bad losses to just learn, because he's brilliant from a brilliant fighter technically. Yeah. Just maybe learn to, now he's at that higher level, just to pace himself a bit better, fight a bit smarter. Yeah, and I think he could do great.
Absolutely. In terms of Darren Till, then let's finish off talking about Darren Till. Of course, when he fought, for someone that's obviously analysed his background, and I've been around him in his camp for a while, for 20 years in fact. But from someone like yourself, who's obviously analysed his fights from Brazil, coming into the UFC, his progression now, the way he talked in the build-up to UFC Liverpool, yet the way he performed was absolutely completely different from what he said he was going to do, what everyone expected him to do. Did that performance against Wonderboy surprise you? And how does that make you think he'll truly go into the fight against Tyron Woodley?
Like, he took a lot of criticism for that performance from some people, but I thought it was brilliant.
Me too, yeah.
Because he beat an extremely high-level striker. What's Thompson, 57-0 in pro kickboxing?
Yep.
And he beat him at his own game. He beat him in a kickboxing match. And people question the decision and stuff, but Till finished every round strong.
Yeah.
Everyone's playing by the same rules. We know judges award more. We know judges like to score rounds in favour of the guy who finishes the round strongest.
Yes.
And Till did that.
Guys on the front foot.
Exactly. More. Controlled the centre of the octagon and won the boxing exchanges.
And nearly stopped him with that when he caught him with that overhand right.
Exactly. So for me, when people question the decision, the performance, it was nonsense. Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to rush in and get flatlined in front of your hometown crowd?
Yeah.
Just ridiculous.
Because Tyron Woodley didn't do it.
Exactly.
Tyron Woodley didn't rush in against Wonderboy.
And that's what's interesting about that fight. Now, I know, obviously, Till and Thompson, two different guys. Thompson based in karate, Till's more of a Muay Thai fighter. Yeah. But they're similar size, similar frame.
Yeah.
A similar style-ish, if a long striker.
Yeah. Very
good at using their range. And I think that's interesting because we've seen Tyron Woodley for 50 minutes compete against that similar style, and in my opinion didn't do great.
No, he didn't.
And with Thompson, he doesn't have the hands to cause Woodley a problem compared to Till.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
Woodley is basically Till is basically Stephen Wonderboy Thompson with power.
Exactly. And
with
boxing.
a bit more youthful aggression about him as well.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you look at the backgrounds, Stephen Thompson's background is point-scoring style karate. Mm-hmm. It is landing a shot and not taking a shot, and using that length. Whereas Till's is using that length, but fucking hitting guys as well. Yeah. Detonating bombs, elbows and strikes, punches especially.
And with Woodley, how he stays so tight to the cage, and that distance in range. If Till catches him, he's got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Because he does like to be tight to the cage. So I think it's a tough fight for Woodley, because to me Till's gone on like a similar path over the last few years to Kevin Lee, where really the only chink in his armour was his cardio. Like, he did slow down quite a lot against Jason Ayari and also against Velikovic.
Yeah.
But to go 25 hard minutes in front of your hometown crowd with all that adrenaline against Stephen Thompson, like, for me, that's like tick.
Of course.
Problem solved, sorted. So he's a nightmare for Woodley, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, complete nightmare.
Yeah. I think Woodley's I didn't say this to him yesterday, but I think he's a 6-minute fighter. I think if you can make him fight for more than 6 minutes, and by that I mean put it on him for more than 6 minutes, he just burns out because he's so big.
And the thing is, when I know Nicholas Dalby's not in the same league as Tyron Woodley, but in Till's fight against Dalby, we saw him extremely tired, extremely hurt, and he hung in there, man. He wouldn't quit.
He had one arm in that third round.
Exactly, a lot of fighters would have looked for a way out. So the fact we've seen him go through that means, and the thing is, even if Till's cardio was an issue, Woodley's not going to fight at a high enough pace to test that, because he can't.
Exactly.
And I'd bet on Till's heart and his cardio all day long over Woodley. The only thing that concerns me about that fight is, on the Joe Rogan podcast, Woodley said that every single fight he does a specific camp for the guy he's facing, and the camp's all around him. Mm-hmm. So based on the 50 minutes we saw against Thompson, I think Till's got one hell of a chance of winning this.
Yeah.
But is Woodley bringing anything new to the table that we haven't seen?
Well, when I spoke to Woodley yesterday, and as I say, I'll put this out as a podcast probably early next week in the build-up to the fight, he basically said, I didn't do any sparring whatsoever for Damian Maia. There was no point.
Mm-hmm.
But I've gone back to heavy sparring like I did for Robbie Lawler.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I sparred as well for Stephen Thompson, but I've gone to heavy sparring like I did for Robbie Lawler, which means that he's expecting to be in a little bit of a war.
Mm-hmm.
He's expecting to take shots. But I just think that Darren Till is a lot bigger and hits a lot harder than the 40-year-old Robbie Lawler.
And one hell of a chin.
Yeah.
And you've got to put yourself in extreme danger to cover that distance.
Of course.
Because Till's so good at fighting long.
Yeah, of course.
And I know because he fights with his hands low, he does have a habit of eating some big shots, but he's always moving with the punch. He's always...
He takes the punches, as
Yeah.
he's moving backwards, of course he does. We can't... This show's ran away with us, as always, but I've got to ask you before you go, Conor Khabib, where you stand on Conor Khabib. I'm going to say no more, because I just want to get your pure take on it, but where are you at with Conor versus Khabib?
So, Conor, my favourite fighter ever.
Yeah.
I love him. I'm praying he wins, because I think he'll be better for all of us. I think...
Fuck yeah.
I need Conor to win.
Conor McGregor business?
I need Conor to win,
Yeah.
but I just think it's an enormous mountain to climb.
Yeah.
An enormous mountain to climb, because the thing is, people are maybe not putting enough weight on that win over Barboza. Like, Barboza's takedown defense was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And a few weeks ago, when I was researching the Chad Mendes versus Miles Jury fight, I went back and watched Mendes versus McGregor. And I know it was 3 years ago, but it just wasn't pretty.
It wasn't, but it was 3 years ago, and he did take it at late notice.
Yeah, that's true. That's
You know?
true. I just worry with
He wasn't prepping to face a wrestler. He was prepping to face, well, it's Jose Aldo, wasn't it, at the time, a striker?
Yeah.
So that would be a counter argument there. I'll be honest, I'm fucking the exact opposite. I think Khabib is made for him. I think Conor will get up, Conor will stuff takedowns, and he may end the first round on his back. But I think second round, first minute, Khabib rushes in and he gets teed off on.
I hope you're right.
Yeah.
I'm praying you're right.
Well, listen, we're both making a living in the MMA business, and let's be honest, the MMA business and the Conor McGregor business are very
It's the
much
same thing.
tied together.
Yeah.
The success of Conor McGregor is the success of the industry at the moment.
Yeah.
So, have you ever made money on Conor fights, even in the early days, or has he never been a viable bet?
I'm trying to think.
Because it's cool that he's your favourite fighter. Obviously, right now he's your favourite fighter. Listen, he should be everyone's favourite fighter. He's a fucking once-in-a-lifetime athlete, let's be honest. But this is the cool bit about your job and what you do, that you can go, oh, my favourite fighter. Like, I could not bet on John Jones.
Yeah.
Because John Jones, for me, is the best that's ever done it, best that ever will do it. So for you to go, Conor's my favourite fighter, and me ask, have you ever made any money? And you're like, well, I don't actually know, I haven't.
I think I've only ever bet on him once and lost. I think it's one of my biggest losses ever, and that was the first time he fought Diaz. I just thought he was going to starch Diaz. Yeah. Honestly thought he was going to starch him. So I didn't expect Conor to fade like that.
Of course.
And I didn't think Nate would be able to deal with his power.
Yeah.
And when Conor came out looking like an Irish Tyron Woodley, I was like, oh shit.
Exactly.
Like, this is not what I'd signed up for. So I didn't see that coming. So I think, I've only lost on Conor.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure I'll be betting Khabib.
Wow.
Just because
the odds will be too irresistible.
Yeah.
Or is that to numb the pain? If
the odds are decent on Khabib. I'm so surprised by the odds. I think, again, this is I could be wrong, but I think this is another example of where public popularity and perception is having an impact on the odds.
Yeah.
I do think Khabib should be a much bigger favourite than he is, just based on that Barboza performance and also the Iaquinta performance. I mean, Iaquinta, BJJ black belt under Matt Serra. He's got a wrestling background, and Khabib put him in some horrific positions. Yeah.
But Iaquinta did land a few times on
big
his chin
time,
as well.
Big time.
Michael Johnson, the same.
Big time.
Michael Johnson peppered that chin.
Yeah. And I think the thing that Conor's very good at is if he hurts you, he doesn't get carried away.
Yeah.
But Khabib's going to feel the pressure if he gets caught with a clean left from Conor. Because you see guys, it happened with Alvarez. Alvarez, stone cold killer, absolute warrior. Yeah. But as soon as Conor connected, he was like, "What the fuck
just
is
got
this?"
completely lit up, didn't he? How many times did he get dropped? 3 times. Conor just lit him up. But at no point when Conor would drop him, Conor didn't pounce on him.
No, exactly.
Conor was like waiting for him to get up again.
And that's what you need with Khabib. Because as soon as you let him control your body or grab a leg, he's a nightmare. Yeah. Just doesn't let go.
But Conor's got that mentality and that experience to go, bang, there you go, you're dropped. But I know there's some left in your tank, so I'll take a step backwards, let you get back up, I'll drop you again, which is exactly what he did, as you say, to Alvarez. Yeah. That's what makes the fight so interesting. In terms of that, what was the term you used? Liquidation, was it?
Yeah, it's liquidity.
Liquidity.
Yeah.
Will we see a spike in liquidity around
huge.
Conor?
It'll be huge. Even for Till Woodley, it'll be quite big.
Yeah.
So the big fights, you can get decent sized bets down on those. Yeah. But obviously the better opportunities are on like the prelims,
the sleepers.
Yeah, but you can still bet a decent amount. You can still bet a few thousand. It's just hard. You might have to do it across multiple different websites and that kind of thing. But it's still possible.
Yeah. Wicked. Listen, man, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed this.
You've been on a crazy journey, like them last 10 years. People don't kind of realise, because, you know, in a similar vein, I do TV, radio, obviously the podcast, everything else, and people contact me all the time going like, fucking, you know, it's kind of overnight thing, and it's just happened for you. And I'm like, I've been a journalist for 19 years.
Exactly.
Like, on this journey, been coming on Fight Sports for 19 years. It just so happens now that I'm doing a bit more broadcasting than I am writing, but in your turn, you know, from being a fan to making a living watching MMA full time is just mental.
It's crazy. That's why I first reached out to you. I think I just contacted you saying thank you for sharing the news.
About 11, yeah.
Because I'm so happy. Like, if it were to end and I ended up back in some office job I hated, it would be devastating.
Of course.
So that's why I had to say like thank you, because I've been freaking out, and that news was like a big relief.
Would that you know, let's say the 11th thing doesn't materialise. You know, I'm not scaremongering here, but would you and your family, would you consider moving country? Would you consider moving to Australia or moving to America, somewhere where you can have a bet?
I have, yeah, I have. I mean, out of all the countries, the best countries to go to would probably be Canada or Scandinavia, because they're super relaxed on online gambling laws. Canada's obviously preferable because the time zone would be much better than it is now. I mean, that, you know yourself, it's grueling. The times that every weekend, you know, I have to stay in late on Friday to adjust my sleep cycle, and then I'm wrecked all day Sunday, and it takes me to like Tuesday to get back into like the real world. It's tough. So yeah, it would be a dream to do that. I don't want to leave though, because my family and stuff, like my parents and my friends, but it is something I've thought about, because there's no that I can't think of anything else I could do which could earn, like I say, I'm not a wealthy man, I don't earn loads, but I can't think of a job I could go and get where I could earn this kind of money. And I definitely, even if it was a job, I wouldn't enjoy it so much. So it's not something I want to think about. So thank God. Please, 11 Sports, you're listening. If you check my timeline on Twitter, every time they post anytime they tweet anything, you'll see me replying, yeah, cool, but when you launch your TV channel? Every time. Spamming them.
I love it. Tremendous. Chris, been a pleasure, man.
Oh, thanks you so much. I appreciate it.
You can catch Chris, as I say, on Twitter at MMA_betting, or visit his website, MMABettingTips.com. And you too can chase a dream and make a living watching MMA.
Crazy.
It's amazing. You'll listen to Fight Disciples. Stick with us this week with the boxing show coming tomorrow with our kid, young Foz. We're going to break that one down. Also, as well, but there's a last few of those Gorilla King t-shirts. I'm telling you, once they're gone, they're gone. There ain't going to be no restock this time. They're going to get posted as well today, tomorrow. So they'll be with you in time for UFC 228. Not that that's got anything to do with the name of the t-shirts, obviously, for trademark purposes. You can listen to us on across social media at Fight Disciples. And for our full back catalogue, visit fightdisciples.com. Next week, the Catterall will be back. Oh, a big shout out as well to Orange Ape. If anyone's seen us on social media, he made the sickest meme ever, which was the team from Dallas, the TV show. And it was me, Darren Till, and Adam as a woman. And it was weirdly titillating seeing Adam with a soft perm. I know he texted me himself saying that he was knocking one out of a picture of himself as a woman. Kind of weird, but that's Catterall's world. Catch you later.
Thank you for listening. If you like what you heard, subscribe via iTunes. Via iTunes. Via iTunes. Via iTunes. Via iTunes. Via iTunes. Via iTunes.